This time I'll talk about new possibilities of humanity education using touch under the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. First, I'll present two challenges. Challenge 1: Overcome cramming education. Nursing colleges are rapidly increasing in Japan, but there is doubt whether college education is creative enough. Students are expected to absorb large amounts of information through didactic lectures, and they do not have enough opportunities to learn through their own questioning and thinking. Challenge 2: Promote experiential learning through touch. According to humans' original ability, we humans can learn not only by seeing but also by touching. Touching is especially important for nurses. However, more than 60 years ago, in the middle of the 20th century, American cultural anthropologist Margaret Mead already pointed out that we humans are forgetting the work of our hands. Nowadays, in university education, the majority of teachers and students are unaware of the fact that they can think of things by touch. Therefore, I started developing the use of touch in first-year nursing instruction to promote experiential learning and reflective thinking. My background: since the late 1990s, I've been developing a method for medical students to touch daily objects, reflect their life-related behavior, express their feelings, and think of them. In 2016, I retired from medical school and started to work in a nursing college, so I resumed my mission to promote experiential learning through touch. As for an appropriate object that makes the touch approach a reality, I finally came to bubble wrap. My touch method before COVID-19. Bubble wrap is a plastic material invented by chance. Since then, it has been used as wrapping fragile things. Then a new interesting property began to be known for its pleasing popping sound when compressed and burst, and have been used as a sources of entertainment. Bubble wrap looked too stimulating for students because some students started popping it immediately, even during lecture time. The students' urge to pop bubble wrap is very strong. However, what happens if I encourage students to reflect on their feeling just before starting their popping bubble wrap? So I asked why they would pop. This why question had an interesting effect on students. The students started to reflect and think about their urges. After students stop popping and start their reflective thinking via bubble wrap, other questions can be asked. Why do you pop? How much force did you apply? What if a bubble is a creature, a small life? What if 100 bubbles are 100 people in a village. On June 14, 2019, last year, I gave my first nursing humanity lecture using bubble wrap. The lecture topic was training to think from your fingertips. At the beginning of lecture, I distributed the bubble wrap to all students. Students' response examples.
I was wondering at first why my teacher distributed bubble wrap in the middle of the class. But later I was amazed that I could explain the keywords of the lecture in an easy-to-understand manner using bubble wrap. It was fresh to think of bubble wrap as a person. I was familiar with primary health care and health promotion. It was fun to touch and think. I never felt sleepy. I never thought that bubble wrap was a creature, a person. But it was easy to understand and it was interesting. I couldn't pop and destroy the bubble because I thought it was a person. I thought it would be alive. I felt sorry for the bubble. I felt that I could hardly touch the bubble, so I wanted to be a person who could feel more and more.
In April 2020, due to the pandemic of COVID-19, the college campus was closed and all classes were shifted from face-to-face to on-demand distance learning in the form of delivering videos to students at home. In this new situation, it is difficult to distribute bubble wrap to students. So I started to develop a tactile approach without relying on bubble wrap. What is the most suitable object for the tactile approach in this situation? I finally chose a paper. Due to the pandemic of the new coronavirus this year, I cannot meet you all in person. Instead, I'd like to raise the issue using a piece of paper that you have at hand. First, please prepare a piece of paper. Paper is important when you take notes, write nursing records, and print on-demand prints. Today, a lot of information is digitized, but paper still plays a lot of roles in our social life. Paper is also important for ceremonies such as entrance and graduation. However, this year, due to new coronavirus, ceremonies are cancelled. Well, I'll start tactile exercise using paper. First, fold the paper. If you fold the paper, a small step will be created. When you have a step, close your eyes and touch the gap. The step created by folding a piece of paper is only a fraction of 1 millimeter. Still, our fingers are sensitive to steps. In this way, because of the delicate ability to feel with the fingertips, the nurse can take the patient's pulse and feel dehydration just by touching it with the finger. Now, keep your eyes closed and move your fingers back and forth between the steps. The feeling is different between the uphill step and the downhill step. Not only can we feel the steps at our fingertips, but we can also imagine various lives from the feelings of our fingertips. Is there a step in your home? You may stumble even on steps that you may not notice. The downhill steps that make you feel at your fingertips also lead to the feeling of going down the actual stairs. You can imagine the real life and environment from the uphill steps that touch your fingertips. Expand your imagination from physical steps to psychological steps. You may have lived a flat, peaceful, and continuous life, but the peace is interrupted, creating a discontinuous, uncertain situation. What discontinuities are you facing with new coronavirus? It may be more concrete to think by touching the discontinuity on the paper with your finger as it is now, rather than thinking it in the lecture room. What do you feel and think from this exercise? Students' responses.
By folding a piece of paper and touching the fold, I was able to imagine various things. I felt the feeling of a step, and I first thought of the stairs. It felt like going up and down. However, when I went on the step from the plane, I felt something suddenly cut off. The sensation was similar to what one would imagine a life resulting from an accident, injury, or illness. Suddenly, I felt the feeling that things that were not the same as before and that I couldn't do were attacked. I held the paper, touched it, and realized that my hands were sensitive. If this paper were on the ground and I stepped on it with my bare foot instead of my hands, I would know it's there. But I wouldn't know whether there is a small step on it. I thought COVID-19 was a difficult wall, like climbing a steep staircase. It's easy to stop, but I think there are some things I can't move forward. However, there is also a feature that I can get a sense by climbing one step. So it would be nice to be able to overcome various obstacles a little. I also thought that sometimes it would be nice to have an easy downhill break.
Discussion. Conceptual background of touch. In this pilot trial of tactile education, I attempted students to think and learn by touching two objects that students encounter in everyday life. The first object used was the most stimulating one, bubble wrap. In the second year, however, the pandemic of new coronavirus made it impossible to use the setting in the first year. So I used the simplest object, a piece of paper, out of everyday objects, as a theoretical framework for explaining the interaction between objects and human. The concepts of affordance exist. Conclusion. This method shows that focusing on touch can stimulate nursing students to think deeply about their roles as they undertake the journey to become nurses. The touch method can help nursing students think about the importance of nursing in our changing society without being overwhelmed by the new coronavirus disaster.